to amend the Code of Ordinances, City of Taylor, Michigan by amending Chapter 10 business license as read.
Correct.
So this paragraph basically right here. I'll get it to Michelle.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. All right, the second issue. All right, the second issue that I'm here for to discuss, I think, preliminarily tonight is a new marijuana ordinance that was circulated about 2 weeks ago to the council, which is a change to, number one, swap out the old ordinance and put in this new one, which incorporates both medical and recreational. As I had indicated in my memo, when I was looking to incorporate recreational into the current ordinance that we had, I found myself tracking changes and crossing out so many things that I thought basically just a replace was the best thing to do. One of the problems is because of the way the marijuana laws have been passed, number one was by a referendum of the people, so it was written a certain way. The second one was the Facilities Act, which was written by lawmakers. And then the third one, this Recreational Act, was definitely written by the lobbyists or the industry group that just had it put there, which is why I can tell it's numbered a certain way. And the definitions and the names are similar. They're not exactly the same. And the amounts of like what a grower A is in one is different from a grower A in the other. And it's marijuana establishment here instead of facility here, and retailer here instead of provisioning center here. So I thought, I was like, you know, let's just do this. Now, frankly, also, it provided me with the opportunity to address some issues with you, like Article 1 of the ordinance that you noticed I completely took out, and that was regulation on individuals under the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act that were caregivers. It was my opinion at the time, and it continues to be my opinion, that just all of that stuff was not something that was going to be enforceable. It's become increasingly apparent it's not going to be enforceable. There's a case in front of the Michigan Supreme Court right now that deals with commercial property versus residential, and the Court of Appeals and the trial court has been very clear. If it allows people to do it, they can do it.
So what you're saying is you're talking, remember how, what didn't we say that you could only grow 12 plants in your house?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what you're referring to.
Exactly.
Okay, I just want to clarify.
Exactly, and what it was doing was, Article 1, as you recall it, it limited to residential areas how many plants they could grow, because we had talked about, I mean, and it's really absurd, you know, 72 plants in anybody's house in Taylor would be outrageous. But the law says what it says, and there's no way for us to regulate it. And so anything in conflict with the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, which is really an individual rights type of act, which doesn't legalize marijuana, it just says we can't prosecute anybody who is acting within the confines of it. So my recommendation is that goes.
I got one more quick question, just before we get into the discussion. Medical, recreational is not legal here. So really the only reason you would need a medical card, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you're under the age of 21.
Yes.
Okay, that's the only reason pretty much.
That's
Because now anybody can walk into a recreational facility and purchase marijuana.
Correct.
But if they're below 21, they can't do that. They would have to go to a medical facility.
Yeah, they would have a card. Yeah, have a card,
yeah.
correct.
Okay.
I'm sorry, if it's a recreationally approved facility. So there are still medicinal only facilities out there.
Correct.
Correct.
So they would, if you walked into that facility, they would still need a medical card, Dave, or no?
Yeah, if they're approved, if they're a facility that's only a medical marijuana approved, they're not supposed to be selling recreational marijuana. That's it.
So,
There's a difference in grade and products and things like that too.
I think so. I mean,
Pricing.
I presume recreational is just going to take over for medical, but it is still two separate state licenses, and the chairperson has pointed out exactly. I mean, the only thing I can figure is if you're under 21 and you have some sort of medical condition and things. I mean, I have seen some individuals over at the court, you know, somebody's in a wheelchair, accident, 18 years old, seems to be using medical marijuana for whatever it is, you know, on whatever it is. So those are the major, that's one of the major changes. The other major change is incorporating the recreational, which again has some different names of different things. So like I said, instead of a provisioning center, which is the dispensary under the medical, it's now a retailer. Processor's still the same, grower's still the same, but the classes are different. There's one business that we talked about that's kind of new. It's called a marijuana micro business, which is what I'll call an all-in-one shop. The way the entire system is set up right now is you have grow facilities provide to the processors process it into a usable marijuana product, which then actually between any of the facilities is transported by a secure transporter. We'll call them the armored car of the marijuana industry. I'm not sure if it's the same, but I'm sure it's a secured vehicle. There's the safety compliance facility, which is a lab that is supposed to be testing the product that they're supposed to label pursuant to the state regulations. The marijuana micro business is an interesting one, I think, was added for the recreational to provide smaller businesses contained, and I guess it's like a microbrewery where it's limited to 150 plants grown on site, processed on site, and then presented there. I don't know, as far as where you would want to buy.
We didn't add that into ours, though.
I put it in this draft, if you guys want it in or out. I just put it there. Yeah, it's just there for you guys to consider to be either in or out. So I did add marijuana micro business as something that's new and popular. And on page 4 in section 11.4, I've got the number of licenses.
Can you go over that, because I don't have my sheet, compared to what, I thought we were going on into the next page. I think we all have them, and but email or something. But just go, I know we used that, in the last one we passed for medicinal, we did 2 dispensaries, I believe maybe a total of 5 grow places, 1 test facility, and 1 transportation license. How many licenses are we going to now have, and could you go over
Sure.
how many for each one?
Sure, and this is not a recommendation by my part, by the way. It's up to the council, whatever we want. The numbers are just the numbers that either pre-existed or we just talked about in committee, so it's completely up to you guys. The numbers are not my recommendation either way. Grower licenses, we had 2 licenses, which I think is consistent with the previous, but I had put in there multiple state licenses may be stacked. This seems to be the trend among big industrial growers. If they have a big enough facility, they're getting multiple state licenses, so they can, instead of 1,500, they can grow 3,000 if they've got the space.
So
they
does that
stack.
take 1 license? Like say if, I think one was like for you could grow 1,500 plants, and one was for 1,000.
Yeah.
So if they stack them, is that 2 permits, 2 licenses?
It would be
Just
one city license, but as long as they qualify for the state, they can stack. The way I have it written here is, we will give you a license for a particular location, but if you have the room, you're allowed to stack what's required by the state or allowed by the state.
So going back to what he was saying, so if they get 1 for 1,000 and 1 1,500, they can have 100 plants.
Correct.
But they only need 1 license.
Only
Only one city license.
The limitation would be the size of the building.
Right.
Okay, right.
Or how they're configuring it. I haven't seen anything personally, but I don't know if they're taking like a warehouse or a 3 or 4 story industrial type facility and putting floors in. I don't know.
The medical had, we authorized 1 at 5, 1 at 1,000, 1 at 1,500, a maximum of 3.
Right.
Right, okay.
This says, if your building's big enough, go for it.
And that only requires 1 license, where we would only have 3 licenses under the old one. Now there could be 3, so now we could have multiple. How many licenses would we be in this?
2, but it doesn't limit you to the 3 that our medical marijuana ordinance does, because if your facility's big enough, you could have 10,000 or 5,000.
It's only 2 licenses.
Okay, but is that one for, a license for recreational and a recreation for medical? Or are we just combining the?
It's just combining it, yeah. It'd just be 1 grower license for the city and then combining it. But again, it's all up to you. These are just ideas on there. Processor, I had two, kept two. Secure transporter, one license, kept one. Provisioning center retailer, we put 5 licenses. Again, it can be more or less. Safety compliance facility, 1 license, and marijuana micro business. That again is basically the same thing as a retailer, but it's homegrown, I guess, is the attraction to it.
What was that?
We put
The
5 licenses.
Provisioning center retailer would get it from the processor, or from the grower license. That's,
Correct.
and the micro business would do it right there.
Exactly.
What was that,
really.
Yeah.
that new category, did you say something about security, or what was that? Like-
Oh, secure transporter license, that's the business, that's the armored cars of it. And then there's the safety compliance
Yeah, that was
facility.
safety.
Yeah, that would be the lab that these
Oh, okay.
facilities are required to get their purity testing to. But any of these numbers are, I'm not an advocate for any of them. It's whatever you want to put in or not put in.